Ron, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we met at a networking event in Manhattan that I actually didn't want to go to because I personally dislike going to networking events, as I told you before. But this time, I just wanted to give it a try, and I met you there. And immediately, as soon as I started talking to you, you made me feel really comfortable, probably using your like magic or something. And I forgot that I was in a networking event. So to be honest, I really forgot that I was in a networking event and talking to like people that I just met. So my first question for you is, have you been always so good at networking and meeting new people?
Your answer is no. I was shy as a kid.
Oh, really?
I was comfortable with family members and friends in my neighborhood or friends in school, but I wasn't. It was a learned skill for me to be comfortable to go up to people I did not know well.
Oh, wow.
The very beginning of seeing what networking could be like was from my parents. So in some ways, polar opposites. My father was the quote unquote life of the party. Was very good externally with people, made people very comfortable, got people really excited to do lots of things, right? And laugh and be gregarious. My mom was, this is another piece of me, is my mom was good at the, like literally approaching anybody, but not always about like inspiring, motivating people, because she really cared to learn about what made people tick. And so my parents are at both ends of like, if I think of like how I've come together and what I've learned through a lot of different experiences, is networking is more about listening and being curious about people, right? It's not about how much you talk, how much value you add. If you make the other person in the conversation feel like they're being valued and listened to, that is the beginning of what some people think of networking as like some kind of transaction. And so, but you can have a good transaction oftentimes with most people unless they're valued and listened to.
Right. So, I really liked your answer about being, curious about other people, because people also ask me how they can, network better and then how to make a small talk better. But then like if you're not interested in the person, you wouldn't have any questions to ask. So I really agree with that statement. Okay. And in America, there is a term called small talk, like just like how I mentioned now. What is it exactly? What is small talk?
So in the Ron Rapatalo dictionary, small talk are, let's say, kind of the warm-up topics that you can talk about, right? That doesn't have much controversy, or at least is perceived to not be controversial. So, they often say in America, there's certain things you don't talk about as like small talk topics, politics, religion, sports. I even add to that. That could be very controversial, even though sports is small talk, right? It's like, oh, I see you're wearing a Yankees hat. Like, oh man, great off season, right? Like, oh, look at all those trades. Like, oh my God, you're a Yankees fan too. So the reason why there's small talk in America, my lived experience being an American citizen, is there's a politeness in America around how you start getting to know people. You can't just say, hey, Summer, can you tell me about like why you're here in America? Like people might be like, that's not small talk. Like, I don't know yet. Where perhaps in Korean culture, right, there's a different level of how you build trust based on values of Korean culture, right? I think what I've seen, if I were to stereotype all American culture, right, and obviously there are regional differences to this, is these are topics that warm people up. Because if you get people warmed up, their level of willingness to talk about more things besides, hey, it was so cold outside today. I can't believe that wind of 55 miles per hour. I almost was knocked off my butt. I mean, right, warm-up topics, right? But, hey, why you're at this event. What brought you here? That's an easy one, like jumping to like a good question to ask someone where you're like looking to build small talk is, if you're here for something, how do you know this person, right? If it's a birthday party, you came to an alumni event for your college or high school, like, what year did you graduate? What was your experience like? You always want to start from like the commonality of like why you came, like you meet someone at the bar. What brought you to the bar today? What kind of drinks do you like? I mean,
yeah,
easy surface level stuff. And sometimes, when you leave the opening somewhere in American culture, people answer more than the question, believe it or not, right?
Right.
They just need to be asked.
Right.
Oh my God, I've had such a hard day, and I'm getting this really stiff whiskey, and oh boy, my work. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
But some, you can listen and you can play it out, right? And you just, if you're valuing what someone is saying, like you don't often always have time to say something back all the time.
Right. Somebody told me that when you make small talk, you don't want to talk about one topic for like too long, for like over than 10 minutes or something. Do you agree with that?
Depends on the person. I don't think there is a standard answer for the length of time that a small topic is talked about. I mean, if that's a rule.
I don't know. The same person told me that small talk, you can think of small talk as some sort of drawing an outline of the person. So like, okay, where this person comes from and what does this person do, but on a surface level. But then like you wouldn't talk about one specific topic for too long, because then it may lead to a, deeper aspect of the topic. So in the sense, maybe.
I think, I don't think there's a length of time. Some of this, from my standpoint, is very emotional and intuitive of feeling out, hey, some are opening up. Some of the look fors I see in whether you can start asking questions to get to know someone better, right, is body language. Are they looking more directly at you? That's also cultural. That's not every culture, right? Where someone's going to look directly at you, they're being attentive. But are they nodding their head? How are their responses? Are they listening to respond? Or are they listening to understand? If they're listening to understand, that's a good sign, right?
Yeah.
Someone's listening to respond, they're like, I don't care how much in-depth questions you have, like that's not going to build trust in relationship, right? Also like when you and I met, like our body language got closer to each other, right? So it was almost as if we were like talking like this, right?
Yeah.
There was an intimacy of the conversation that when you initially talked, we were more like this, right? And then I think as we got, much more interested in our conversation, where we literally looked at each other face to face.
Yeah.
And I think that might be very American, very Eurocentric. I don't know how that is in Korea and other Asian countries, because body language norms don't carry across the globe, right? So I just wanted to name that. But there's something about in Korean culture, when you start trusting someone, how does your body and your face look like, right? There's probably some norms around that, right? So I think those are things, for someone who's Korean to learn that in America, like the things that I just said, I think are important, even if you're like, what does Ron mean by emotion and intuition? I don't know. I'm like, no, physically, you can see someone's change most times.
Right.
And they're interested in the combo. And so then you can start moving from small talk, which could be 10 minutes, or you can move in 5. I didn't know what moment I started like moving to beyond small talk with you. I just felt that because you were starting to open up and I was asking questions, I got you to laugh. Laughter is another big sign for most people. Like it's when it happened, like belly laughter, the kind of laughter you're like, oh my God, like not like,
yeah.
like that kind of laughter. That opens people up to answer questions more about who they are.
I'm not sure if you have met many people from like different cultures, but in Korea, because we don't have this networking events, networking culture, we tend to just tend to listen to people because we don't know what to really say. And if you meet somebody and the person just listen to you, but not really add anything new to the conversation, how would you perceive that kind of passive conversation style?
That kind of question is really in the eye of the beholder on the other side of the conversation. Some people might say, right, it's someone who's just listening, like, and maybe asking good follow-up questions, right? There may be, that's a little bit better than just solely listening. For some people,
Right.
all they want to do is be listened to, right? So I think, you know, it probably depends on the person, but if I think of like stereotypical American networking culture, if you're just seen as like, they're gonna be like, what do you have to say? Sometimes all you have to say is like, and do good questioning. Sometimes a little bit more what you have to say is tying what someone has said to you, then asking a follow-up question to get to know more about that person, right? Sometimes a good way to be listening, aside from just hearing somebody, right, is being able to, you know, move that conversation to go deeper, right? Because I think there's a perception, to be honest, we talked about this before, of when you have the stereotype of like the quiet Asian American who just listens and nods, right? Back home in Korea, it's seen as like, that's a way for you to like really build a relationship with people because you're really listening to what someone has to say without doing any like deep questioning per se, perhaps, right? I think in America, that's going to be seen by, I think, a good deal of people as what some are thinking. Why all she's doing is listening, right? And so sometimes the very skill sets that we value around people listening to understand are seen as passive behaviors. I don't agree with that, but I think that sometimes it's going to be in a lot of people's heads at events like that, right? Is that you have to balance it with, you're still listening, but you're sharing enough of your perspective, but you're not dominating the conversation at once it's your turn to talk. It's,
right. Yeah.
Because that is just crazy, right? I've seen conversations on like, you know, to like, who can say something wittier or better? I'm just like, I walk away from those combos pretty fast.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I gotta go to the bar to get another drink. Oh, it's nice talking to the both of you.
Because one of the reasons why I didn't like to go to networking events is because I tend to like, you know, a bit more deep conversations than just, you know, talking to someone for 2 to 3 minutes and move on to the next person. But there was the pressure that I always had over networking events, like, oh, I have to talk to as many people as possible in this room, and then I have to get as many business cards as possible so that I can follow with these people. But it really, like you said, it never happened like that way. But yeah.
That's a phenomenon because you're in New York City, right? That's a very distinctly like city thing, right?
Yeah.
In New York City, compared to anywhere else in America, is going to feel like lightning. Right? There are only, I think, certain places in the world, certainly Seoul, right? But your culture is different in Korea, right? But that's a fast-paced city, right? Shanghai.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You know, Manila, my home country, the Philippines, right? There'll be certain places like, whoa, that moves fast. So when you live in a culture where things are fast, because there's a density of people, there's a lot of business, there's a lot of things happening, right? Sometimes we feel as if we have to move at the speed, which means the speed at which we need has to move at the speed of which we think we're experiencing our lives, which I get why that happens, but that's not how you build depth and trust in relationships. Western culture, the loud people get the most attention.
Yeah, exactly. That is something that I had to get used to here in America. But that actually brings me to the last question that I have for you. It would be great and it would be so lucky if everyone met someone like you at an event, right? But that's not the case. Usually it doesn't really happen to me. Like, I think it was a very rare occasion that I felt so comfortable at an event where I would just meet strangers. That being said, I think people should just hone their networking skills. How do you think people can practice these skills?
You know, there's a practice of it with people that you already know, right? I do think there's some value in like role playing it with people you already know. People play someone that you're meeting at an event. Like, let's say, all right, Summer, you're going to a Columbia event.
Right.
I don't know too many people. You're just really interested in it because it's on the event calendar. It's a really cool event about something that you're interested in. You're like, I don't know if I want to go. Like, I'm really interested in the topic, but like, how am I going to talk to people? It's like, well, have it someone you trust. Think about, well, who are the likely people that are going to be there, right? Other people that might love that kind of thing, right? So what might you think would be a good topic of conversation when you first meet someone there? Or are you to today's event? Oh, I didn't know you loved that art too, so do I. Yeah, I was really impressed with, oh my God, I was impressed with that too, but my favorite thing was, you see where this is going, right? It's just what I mentioned. Sometimes at events like that, there's a momentum of feeling the emotion of what it's like to actually have a successful conversation with someone who you know, but is playing someone you don't know. That person should make it a little difficult for you too. Like, sometimes you can meet someone who's like, yeah, I'm here because I go to these Columbia events and I like art. Well, what did you think? Then you start to ask questions. Well, what did you think? What did you think of the art and the panel? What's your favorite part? Well, oh, you didn't like that? Why didn't you like it? I'm curious. Huh. Keep digging under the hood, right? Sometimes not everybody is going to be like, when you answer a question, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
You have to listen to what's said. Sometimes good questions when you're practicing networking is just good conversation. Life. With someone you're meeting at work for the first time.
Right. I think that's a really, I think that's a really, really good way of practicing, because, I've been away from Korea for the past 6 to 7 years, and it was not, I feel better. I feel better about me going out there, putting myself out there to meet new people. But in the beginning of my time in New York, it was extremely hard to meet people at an event like that. And my husband actually taught me a lot. Let me practice my networking skills with him a lot before we went to like dinner event or something like that. And I often asked him, so when I talk to this person, because we usually have some information about participants, he helped me brainstorm what kind of questions I can ask and what kind of topics I can bring up, what kind of, combo we can have. So that really helped. And that actually gave me confidence to lead a conversation.
Confidence is a big part of it, right? Because if you don't know what that conversation is going to feel like, tendency is to freeze, right? And there's only so much you could do to prepare for these conversations, right? Some of it is just those values of like, be curious and listen. That's value already. You're adding value in that conversation strictly by like, I respect your humanity enough to listen to what you have to say and be curious about who you are.
Curious about who you are.
The vast majority of people, like if you have that, all the questions that come over from being curious and someone who listens to understand, they more naturally come up.
Be curious about other people. Be curious about who you really are. I think that's a great way of thinking. Thanks so much, Ron. And I hope that our Korean viewers learned something from our video. And then I heard you just told me that you might launch your own podcast, right? Can you tell me a little bit about it? Even though it's not really ready?
It's not been set in stone, but the title I'm playing around with is called Ronversation. Get it?
Yes. Yeah, I like it.
Interviewing people I think are really amazing and interesting, which is just about everybody I know, but like, you know, some of it has to curate what I want to talk about with people and who I think is interesting. But I think if I were to look a list of names of people, I can probably come up with that fast because that's how my mind thinks. And so some of it is just, you know, meant to be conversations to elevate the voices of people that I know who may not have had their voices elevated enough. Who want their voices amplified with the kind of network that I have and the people do what I have to say, right? I think in this day and age in America, those of us who are people of color need to push our voices to be elevated. There is a incredible beauty and depth of what our lived experiences in America that needs to be talked about. And also on the other side of like amazing beauty is a lot of pain, honestly. That also talked about, right? Yes, and it'll definitely, my personal website has officially launched. It's ronrapatalo.com.
Okay.
Anybody that wants to talk to me, there's a contact me form. So I'm there to be sharing content, and for folks who want to invite me to a podcast or to
Awesome.
be coached.
Okay, perfect. So I will put the link to your website in the description box as well. And thank you so much for being with us today. And I really enjoyed our conversation again, and hope to invite you again next time.
Thank you, Summer, for having me. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.